You are listening to the Red Roots podcast.
Take two. Good morning.
Good morning.
We started this already once and then couldn't hear Melinda very well. So started again. Here we are again. Good morning again. Everybody doing well?
Yep.
Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. Tired. I don't know why I'm tired, but yeah. I don't know. Tuesday's like the new Monday. It's not really. I don't know. It's just weird. I don't know,
He
man.
reminds I'm going to take Monday off. And I turn around and he's working on the chicken coop out back. And
Well, I mean, they were out
with
there
all
too,
of you guys.
so they know.
And not taking it off.
Yeah, it helped a lot because, I was telling him it would have taken me a lot longer. I thought I was going to do it real quick by myself and just fix whatever needed or whatever. But then I realized, when you and Rudy came out there, it took us a few hours doing it all together. And I was like, oh man, this would have taken me a long time. And even longer with Jolie and Jalen helping. And so, yeah, appreciate that. So we got the chicken coop. What would you say that we did to it?
Patched it up.
Patched it up is probably the best. That's the best way to say it. We didn't fix it. We didn't restore it. We just patched it up. There's a gazillion holes in that thing, in the chicken wire. And we have ducks. We have Muscovy ducks. You can Google it if you don't know what it is. And so we have those, but they're still small, so they need to be locked up. And so they don't get eaten up by, there's a hawk in our backyard, and there's some these big lizards, tegu lizards or whatever they're called, and stuff like that. So they don't get killed yet, and my kids aren't in tears.
Yeah.
They need to be locked up until they get bigger. Those things I was telling Simon, they can get up to 30 pounds.
I didn't know.
They're big, man. They can get big. And then obviously they can defend themselves at that point, hissing and scratching. They have a claw on the back of their
So I should tell Jolie to stop hugging it?
no.
Okay. Because you said they claw and stuff. I don't want them to claw her.
I mean,
she hugs this thing like it's a stuffed animal.
he saw him yesterday. They're just hugging him and holding him around. And they were Jalen accused Simon of being afraid of ducks because he didn't want to hug it.
She comes carrying it up to me. She's like, take it. I was like, no, I'm good. It's a duck. And she's like, you scared of it? I'm like, no,
That's
it's a
because
duck.
I'm scared. I don't like any kind of birds. And so when they tell me, here, Mom, take it, I'm like, no. So they probably thought the same thing.
I walk up because I was over here getting something at the office, and I walk back over, and Jalen says, he's afraid of ducks. It's I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. And I can hear him saying to it, I just don't want to hold it.
Good job not giving in to younger than you peer pressure.
Yeah, they try that all the time. They try to punk people into stuff oh, you're scared. Because I do that to them and it works. And so in their minds, this works on everybody. And it obviously, it does work on some people apparently, but just not on everybody. So so that's enough about ducks. We start off great talking about ducks. But that's where we are in life right now. We have ducks. It is what it is.
And they eat so much.
They eat so much. But that's why we got them. Is for the gardening stuff. But they eat so much, so many bugs and creatures, and they eat snakes, and they eat what are they called? Frogs, and frogs can be good for your garden, but they eat so much, just critters. They eat so much that it's helpful. They even eat small rodents and stuff too. So helpful for the garden with those rodents that bury and eat up your stuff or whatever. So the idea was, and they don't scratch. Chickens will scratch your garden up or whatever. They'll tear it up, digging, looking for bugs. Ducks don't do that, and so.
I didn't know why you showed up with those things when you did.
Yeah. I mean, there was a reason to it. I just didn't share with anybody. And so, it wasn't yes, a duck. Yeah.
I was so confused. I was like, he's just gone crazy with animals. He just wants them all now.
Yeah, no. There's a reason for that I wanted it or whatever. So that's the idea. And then, so now that we have the chicken coop, we can get a few more. And these ducks need water less as well. They don't need to be in water all the time, and so that's great. But they eat so much now because we can't let them loose. I mean, they're always going to eat a bunch, but it's a lot to us now because we have to feed them. But when you let them loose, they forage. And you still feed them, but you know what I mean? It's they're eating all day long.
Okay.
And so these are the right types of ducks for us.
Cool.
Agreed? You
Okay,
care less at this
sure.
point. They're already there. I thought they were dead this morning when I went out. I was like, the first thing I opened the door, I was like, I hope they're not out there like something killed them or whatever. But
I thought the same thing when I went out there to check
They
on
were just
them.
staring at you through the gate.
They're
like,
in a little corner just looking like, give me food.
like, why are we in here? Which, ironically, this is way bigger than their thing before. But anyways.
Second time, that's enough about ducks.
Yeah. Well, you said something that made me think like something else. Anyways, that's where we are on the garden project. We have ducks. Good grief. Yeah, so what do we want to talk about today?
Today, we want to talk about...
Assimilation.
Was it the first one you said, Simon? Mm-hmm. Yes. Assimilation versus culture change. So, like, as missionaries, we arrive at our country that we're going to live in.
Final destination.
And you have, you out of respect, this is just what you do. You don't show up to someone else's country and you're like, oh, you have to become like me. Even though us Americans, we kind of do that. But you have to speak my language. No, the person arriving has to learn the culture, has to learn the language, has to learn the customs. And, but sometimes that conflicts with us as missionaries because sometimes it's just very different from our culture and customs. So we don't want to do it. But sometimes it's just like, this needs to change. So like, where is that line? As a foreigner, you're in this country, you're serving, where's the line between assimilating because this is the way they do things and the way they've always done things versus encouraging people to change the way they've always done this thing because of XYZ,
Yeah. Simon? Yeah. I mean, it's a big conversation. A good one.
I guess we can start with like, what is something that you feel it should change? And then we can unpack that. Like, is it something you feel like you need to approach people about changing or approach the church about changing? Or is it something that we just need to get used to?
Yeah, that's tough because that is a daily thing. And we talk about it quite a bit with Simon. Because there are some things that aren't culturally wrong, but they bother us. You know what I mean? Because it's not, like you said, it's not what we've been used to. It's not something that we have, it's not even something we're not used to. That's not the issue. It goes against what we are used to doing. And it's like, I think the first thing you have to do is check your supremacy, man. And like you do have prejudice and supremacy issues, like regardless. And it's not.
So how does a person who has that check it? You go in and a supremacy is thinking I'm smarter and I'm better. And so you don't know that the way that they're doing things is not necessarily just different. You think it's wrong. Well,
we don't even it's subconscious. Let me say that, but we don't even personalize it. So it's not like I think I'm better or smarter than no one. There's very few people, but that think consciously I'm supreme to this person because I have black hair, because I'm tall, or because I'm white, or I'm black, or I speak English. Or there's very few people that think directly like that. But I think it's being honest with yourself, the way you see yourself in relation to said culture or said person. But most of the time we do automatically assume that Western cultures, for my case obviously would be the United States, is better or smarter because it's more advanced. It is more advanced. But we assume that prosperity means intellect and wisdom and even like right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like we think that riches and a lot of money means everything that we do is right compared to them. And if we have stuff in common, then great. But if they're doing something that different from the way that we do it, then we see it as wrong. And so then we feel the need to change it. And that is a supremacy thing. I think to check that, man, first is having good friends, like legit friends who they care about you more than they care about their friendship with you. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so like they want to be able to, say that stuff to you, like, hey, check your supremacy. But I think the missions community should do a better job because we talk about this all the time. Yeah. But I think it's not because we don't have a missions community. It's literally us. Like, so we're married. So that, you know what I mean? Like, so I mean, I guess it's the community, but it's not like, it's a lot easier with less people. But I think we need to do a better job at having these conversations. Missionaries get together all the time. And I'm not, maybe they do, but I don't think a lot of them, like a lot of us, talk about our supremacy issues or like how we struggle with seeing ourselves better. We talk about things we struggle with the culture with and what we hate.
And we can talk all day about that too.
Absolutely.
It becomes a little bit too much.
But we don't talk about the side of it that maybe, that we need to deal with and struggle, that we need to overcome and like just let it go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And kind of submit, because I think there's security and familiarity. Is that, I don't know how to say that word.
Yeah. I think like as well, like you naturally search out people who are like-minded or think similar ways. And so I think there's definitely that the risk of developing that toxic environment is within like the missionary circle, or even just expat circle. You go into there, and then to say like for 6 months the roads have been really bothering me. Now I found a group of people, and I go, oh yeah, the roads really bother me, and everyone's sitting around going, oh yeah, me too. All of a sudden I'm like, oh awesome, I found people who agree with me on this. And then like you said, you can spend the whole day just ranting about the roads and things like that. I have to be careful when I go back to like Santa Cruz or something like that, and I spend time with my uncle. We'll go out on a drive, and the roads in Santa Cruz are just ridiculous in the way that how people drive. There are just no rules. People do whatever they want on the roads. You do have to check yourself, being like, okay, let's not spend this whole hour of this road trip just mad and ranting and saying, oh, the way we do it in England is like this. It's like,
they're driving on the wrong side of the road.
Savages.
Yeah, that's true. And like what you said a second ago is like we have a natural tendency to look for people who have things like us, things in common with us. And I think it becomes frustrating to us is when we come to different countries or go to different countries. And we are kind of naturally, and even unbeknownst to us, we're looking for that, but we can't find it because things are so different. And so it becomes like this big divide because we don't have anything in common. And because we have our comfort in the things that we're familiar with, then we create the system of supremacy to where, you know what I mean? To where, they don't do that. And like, again, I don't think anybody, actually there are a few people, but not a lot, that turn their noses up intentionally. Yeah. But equally, it's still happening, you know what I mean? And so, so I think the first thing is just identifying your issues too, and it's not even resolving your issues, but confronting them. Because it's a process sometimes. And so I think if you begin the process of confronting those issues, at least now you will have an alert, or more or less, or at least if you confess that to other people, to hold you accountable, they can kind of help you alert to keep you kind of in line. Because there are because from then, let's think like, if we don't like cumbia is a type of music. And if we just hate cumbia music, and then we're like, oh, we don't need to sing cumbia, we need to sing, indie rock. And it's like, I don't know, this is obviously off the top of my head, the example. but so now you spend all this time trying to convince people that cumbia is not as good as indie rock. Says who though? That's just super subjective or what, And so that's something that you need to adapt to. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying you need to love cumbia, but equally, like, it is what it is. People listen to cumbia. Or like for me, like for soccer, depending on who's listening. I don't hate it. I don't like it though. Like, so it's never been a part of my life. But equally, I thank God that they love me like this too. But equally, like, I've never come and be like, oh no, let's turn the football. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've never done that. I wanted to, but I check myself like, oh, this is just your preference, dude. Like, back off, and whatever. And so just be quiet and either learn to not even learn to like football, learn to cherish your time with people. Yeah. And so if people are around watching football, then if you don't like football, then you like people though. So be there for the people, don't be there for the football. And like we'll joke here and there before, not so much anymore, because they know I don't like it. So they make jokes and I'm like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I told them in the States it's not that popular and whatever, you just make jokes about it. But like equally like tapering that and not being like, oh, football's for girls, every time, and like just completely bashing it every time, and just making it known to everybody who has an ear that you hate it almost to the point to where you think this is wrong. You know what I mean? And it's just silly. Oh, but American football, like, okay, that is great that you like it, but that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's not, you know what I mean? There's so many things that aren't right or wrong. And I think in different cultures, I think it's not the fact that we see different things that different cultures do as right or wrong. I mean, as whether we like it or don't like it, likes or dislikes. It's that we start to create a new system of sin, essentially. And again, maybe not consciously, but we become so adamant and passionate about changing things that aren't sinful. And so it's like, so now these are cultural sins. They're not biblical sins, but they're cultural sins. So like, you have in the United States, they're just now starting to pass laws where people can wear like ethnic hairstyles, like dreadlocks and stuff like that. That's how black people's hair, you know what I mean? Like, and it was a thing to where it was considered unacceptable. It is in some smaller towns. In bigger towns, they don't even
unacceptable,
care.
unprofessional, even in schools.
Yeah, it's unprofessional. Well, why is it unprofessional? And so it almost turns into a cultural sin. And so we don't accept people like that. We don't hire people like, what? Why? I get if it's there's a difference between unprofessional and unkempt. Like there's a difference. Yeah. And like, so dreadlocks can be unkempt, but they can equally be kempt. Is that I don't know. Well kept. I think that's the opposite. And so, but we've made that like, oh, that's wrong. And we've programmed that into people. And we stay away from dreadlocks and ethnic hairstyles or afros or whatever, because that's wrong. So you have people like trying to fit into this system. And basically the whole system is to get people to be like you. And that's on a secular level, right? But we do the same thing as missionaries and stuff like that. And that's not wrong. We have to see. So my point is that the things that need to change are things that are sinful.
Yeah. And I think we do this generationally too. You know, the older generation is like, don't use those cell phones on your phone those Bibles on your phone because it's not correct. Don't use TikTok because it's of the devil. Don't play video games because you're going to get possessed by a demon. Like these are things that are legit circulating in the news because people from older generations don't consider those changes, and it's not the way I've done it, and so it must be wrong or evil,
Yeah. And I just think overall ministry has become about my comfort. And I don't mean that necessarily prosperity gospel levels, but I mean like even in we don't use TikTok here. It's because I'm not comfortable with that. It's new and I don't understand it. So I don't want anyone to do it. We don't do, like all these things, even dress the way that we dress and stuff in church. A lot of people are not accepting of the way different people dress. It has nothing to do with biblical anything. It has everything to do with my comfort, and I don't feel comfortable with people who dress like that in church. So I want everyone to change to fit my comfort.
You brought up a really good point that I didn't even realize that we do, was that we start making like these secondary sins or cultural sins, you said. Like, I remember the guilt that I was served on a platter because I wanted to go to church in jeans and sneakers and a t-shirt, and I was told that I didn't care about God because I didn't care to give him my best. And whatever we do for God, we do our best. And if I could do my best hairstyle and dress in the best clothing, then I didn't care. And so like I dealt with that. I was like, and so I had to start wearing dresses to church or, trying to look nicer because a person that,
they wanted you to give God their best. Like, you know what I mean? Like this, you have Cain and Abel. Cain is raising, wait, I'm going to confuse this. Who has fruit? Abel. Abel has fruit, and Cain has like cattle and stuff, right? So their offerings are going to look different.
Yeah.
It's just based off of where they work and who they are. And so, should you wear your best? Sure, right? Like, let's honor God with the way we dress, and let's wear our best. But that's, again, it's subjective because what is your best? And we're not even talking about economically. I said because everybody's access is different. So if I have $500 extra this month, does that mean I need to go buy or I don't know how much? I have no idea how much suits cost. But like
a nice suit, not $500.
Yeah, I don't think so. But my point is like, do I need to go spend because now I have a new best, and it turns into rat race. But that's my thing, is like, we don't care about what's on people's hearts. We don't care about whatever. All we care about is what makes us comfortable. If you're sinning in secret and stuff like that, we'll never say that's okay. But we don't even really care to address that but you have a tie on. You know what I mean?
You look like us.
Yeah, you look like us. And so that's enough for us to see you as sanctified and, and God changes from the inside out most of the time. And so, all the time, actually. Outside in doesn't work well. It's like a fake it till you make it approach, right? And you can't put a tie on lust. You know what I mean? And so you can wear all the suit jackets and stuff you want. I'm not saying that's wrong by any means. Again, if that's what you want to wear, then wear it. By all means, please wear it. But don't project that onto me because that's what you're comfortable and that's your best. So it's like if I make $100,000 a year and you make $1,000 a year, that now if you say I'm going to give God my best offering and your best offering is $10, by that same logic, now I'm just going to give $10 too. Because that's the best, right? And who sets the standard and the bar of what the best is, of where that comes from? Is God sets the standard, but it's in our heart. And so it's a heart issue. It's not a practice issue. And so I think when we start to see things like that, see sin for sin and preference for preference, like this is my preference. And you can share that. You can say, man, I really, would like our leadership to wear polo shirts at least. But it needs to be made very clearly that that's your preference and it's not God is angry or you don't love Jesus because you wore a tan-ish military tan. It's definitely not gray.
That's not gray?
No.
Anyway.
It's like a dark military tan t-shirt or you wore a Frio River t-shirt. I don't even know what that means. Or like, what do I have on? A gorilla or ape or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's so silly to get caught up in these preferences when there's so many deeper matters that Jesus cares deeply about.
I know there is a very specific cultural issue that I felt needed to change right away. Like these Bolivians need to get it together, and I think we all have, and it's the timing issue. It's like, okay, service starts at 9:00 and people are walking in at 9:45, like nothing, like not even like, I'm so sorry. They're walking in like, hey, greeting everyone. Like this is just the norm. And I think from day one struggled, even when friends are like, hey, let's meet at this corner so we can ride together and go here. I would meet there. I would literally just wait for at first it was like 30 minutes. And then after that, I will wait 5 minutes and I'm gone. Like if you don't respect my time, you're gonna know it, and you're gonna know I'm frustrated about it, and I'm leaving. And it did change at least the way that we worked as a friendship. Like they never came late. Or
absolutely,
or they'll apologize.
But I mean, there's several things to that, and in a personal relationship, you're allowed to set expectations. You're allowed to do that. Now, if a person doesn't want to meet those expectations, okay. You're allowed to do that, but equally there's a layer of integrity there as well. You said you're going to do it. So as believers, like the goal isn't to just get people to come on time. The goal is to get people to do what they say they're going to do, because it goes much deeper than coming on time. So now, we have some issues with our roof. We've been trying to get it fixed for weeks, calling people. He's been calling people. We've been, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there, whatever. That is an issue, and we make it look worse here because they said it's simple and it's basic, and we criticize people here because you said you were going to come and you did not come. It's simple, but the issue is that you're not doing what you said you're going to do. Now in the United States, that happens a lot too. They'll show up, they'll come, but people won't do what they said they were going to do. That's in everything. It's not just about showing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's so much easier to pick out and pick on when it's like just showing up, because we view that as very simple. But it's just the heart of the issue is the same everywhere. You know what I mean? And so that's for me, that's not okay. Especially as a church leader, you can't be coming late. Like, we're setting an example. Excellence is a thing. Like, we believe that the gospel transforms. How does it transform you? Just in the areas of morality? Yes, but equally, so that's integrity goes into play in that, but also in the areas of excellence, because the gospel promotes you to live a certain lifestyle. And that doesn't mean just a sinless lifestyle, but to go like above and beyond and do things the right way and do everything as unto the Lord, and et cetera, et cetera. And so, and that's what we talked about Sunday, like it has to change. It can't just change the way that you read your Bible or the way that it has to change everything. Like that's what its goal is, to not leave anything, even the most simplest practical areas of your life, untouched. Like it wants to completely transform you into a new person. And through the process of sanctification, you get to the place to where to everything that you do reflects the glory of God and the miracle and the grace that's found in his the transformational power of the gospel. And like, so it goes to even to the place to where, oh yeah, he used to be a mean guy, now he's a nice guy. That's incredible. Yeah. Like, okay, he used to curse a lot and drink a lot, but yeah, he doesn't drink a lot now. Glory to God. But like, man, this dude, he doesn't even come late anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even that. And so I'm not saying one is more important than the other. I mean, whatever. Some are more important than the others because some hurt people. But equally, it's not just seeing the deep things and the things that hurt other people, but even the things that seem like little or not big deals. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't even like run red lights anymore. Yeah. Like that's how deep the gospel is supposed to go in its in the process of transformation and sanctification that we find ourselves going through. That's how deep it's supposed to go. Not, oh man, he doesn't drink anymore. He runs red lights every once in a while. Like, you know what I mean? No, like the level of integrity should know no ends. Like to how great and like how much we want to glorify God in everything we do. And so I mean,
at some point you looked at it, both of you lead services, right, with people, you with the youth and the children, and then you with the Sunday mornings. At some point you had to confront it or address it. How did you do it to where it didn't come off as like, oh, here's this, foreigner telling me how to do things. He thinks his way is the best way. Or, I mean, how did you even confront it? Because there are going to be a lot of issues that, because basically what you're saying is there's some things that we do assimilate to because it's just cultural and it's not sinful. But then there's some things that cause us to lower our bar or go against biblical standards, and because it's cultural. And so those are the things we address, the things that go against the word of God or the character of God. And so like, do you address the people as this is against the character of God, we have to change this? Or like, what does that, because people come to our church and they come on time. Like we start youth service in children's church, it starts on time. No one's waiting around for anybody. So like, was there some kind of conflict with the people and trying to retrain them and how to do this? Or what?
I mean, for me, a big key, and our church has never been terrible as like, here it's not near as bad as in Cochabamba. As far as people leaving you hanging and stuff, it's nowhere even remotely close. But a big key here was Rudy. So like he's a firm believer in that. Oh, we need to start on time. Like, he gets it, the excellence perspective, and just the raising the bar of the church, like operating in excellence. And so in our stuff, like on Sunday morning, like he's been a big key in that. But equally, like I don't address like cultures and stuff. Like when I talk about, and I don't know if you noticed this, but I don't say like, oh, here in Bolivia or in the United States. I don't, because at the end of the day, I don't care what they do in the United States. And I don't care what they do in Bolivia. This is who we are as kingdom citizens. And that really trumps, no pun intended, that really trumps all like the Bolivia and the United States and UK is whatever. And that's how I always present it as kingdom citizens. So anytime we present a change like that, that goes against, that possibly could go against Bolivian culture or American culture, whatever, I'm not getting into what Bolivians do. I'm getting into what kingdom people do.
Okay, yeah.
And this is what kingdom people do. And if we belong to the kingdom of God, then this is how we do that.
So then at that point, you're just doing your job as the elder and the preacher.
Well, I think one time somebody tried me on that, on the United States, and like I wasn't having that because I don't care what they do in the United States. This is what... And if they do it in the United States, okay then. But that's not the reason that we're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, I can't remember the whole context of the conversation, but I made it clear I wasn't having those excuses. Like, because it's not. I'm not talking about. I was like, everybody needs to wear a watch on their left hand because like it wasn't anything like that. It was something to do with like the way we do things in the kingdom and doing it excellence, because we're doing it as unto the Lord. We went to a church one time with and you remember, and the worship leader. said something about rehearsal. It was bad. The worship was really bad. And the worship leader actually played in another band. And his other band, they played pretty well. Decent at least. But in worship, it was awful. And so I was like, what's the problem? Why is it there? Somebody asked him something about it, and he was like, oh, well, this is for God. And he said that as almost like, oh, God's graceful and accepting and whatever. Like, you can do less for God. And we laughed, like, between the three of us. Were you there?
I don't remember.
Anyways, we laughed. It was a few people were there. Me and laughed in disbelief, like, oh, so we do less for God because, oh, yeah, it's God. He loves us. He'll accept anything. It's not about what he'll accept. It's about what we want to give him. Like with Christmas coming up, I'm not going to be like, will Melinda accept this piece of dust? Yeah, she'll accept it. But it's not about what you accept. It's about what I want to give you. And that really shows, not in gifts, but it does show the depth of your love, is the thoughtfulness that you put in these things. And it's the same thing as our offering to God, is we don't give to God just what he'll accept. We give him what we want to give from it. Because God will accept anything if it's your best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If all you have is dust, he'll give it to you. But if you have, something else to give, it's not better. If you have something else is your best and you don't give that, then you know what I mean? Then you're wrong. So somebody could give $1 million and somebody else could give 1 penny, like we see with and with the lady or whatever. Or she gives it 2 shekels or whatever. And so she's giving her best. And so that, you know what I mean? That's the issue. And I think that's the angle I come from when I talk about like the change. And sometimes I kind of like, you know what I mean? Because I know like that this is a cultural thing. Mm-hmm. And I definitely, I typically with changes like that, there are cultural stuff. If it's our church culture stuff, I don't care. I'll go right off the cuff. We're not preserving that for what? But if I feel like it's something that's been normalized or is normal in Trinidad or in Bolivia as a whole, then I kind of take some time to make sure that what I'm confronting is not just something that irritates me, just something I don't like, and it's something that really needs to change. And so I'll take a few days sometimes, and just like I'll think about it throughout the day for a few days and be like, okay. And typically my approach changes, but for the most part, like it's like the issue is still the same. It needs to be confronted. And so I'll just come in and I won't say like generalizations are never helpful. You Bolivians, you Americans, you black people, you white people, you know what I mean? This is it's never helpful. Like broad stroking, and so I'll just say like, hey, one thing we need to work on, like I said on Sunday, one thing we need to work on is sharing the gospel with people. It's an area where we can, but I feel like I've earned that with our people to be able to say that, and that's not a Bolivian thing, that's a us thing. Like, hey, we need to get better at sharing the gospel in every weekend. Hey, it's where we are, but we're going to get better. Like, it just is what it is. This is where we're headed. This is where we're going. And so it makes people, you earn equity. You have equity in the situation. So for me, that's my approach is really, I just come from, because we're doing ministry, I come from a kingdom approach. And if there's no justification in the kingdom approach, then I'll just leave it alone. Like, what are we changing it? Yeah. Because I want to.
But you go looking for it before.
Looking for what?
Like, I don't like this about the culture. Let me look for a justification to want to change it. Or is this something that just conflicts?
Some things are obvious, though. I mean, for the most part, it's obvious. Sometimes, though, it's not. Maybe 80% of the time, it's obvious. 25% of the time, it's something that just bothers you.
I just feel like that is a dangerous line to walk. Is that you don't like something, so then you're looking for a reason why it is not biblical. Because that's why we see a lot of issues now in the world, is in the church, is that, we're looking for reasons why God would disapprove of your actions. Even though we don't know right now that God disapproves, I just know I don't like it. Yeah. So.
But that's another reason why it's so important to have tight relationships with the people from your local church body, but are also lifetime members of the culture. They're ethnically Bolivian, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because you can have those conversations with them. And I think a lot of times what happens is we come up with these ideas to change, but we don't have anybody that is, in our case, Bolivian. Yeah. Do we know them well enough to be like, hey, does this make sense to you? Because we do this and the Bible says this or whatever. And so we just are on our own. And so we can't really when the lines are blurred a little bit, maybe, and it feels like we don't know what the difference. You know what I mean? We make that decision based off of what we want. So for me, I'll talk to Miguel, Rudy, or Carlos or whatever again because we trust one another too. So even if it's something that they hadn't thought of, they'll listen to me. But it's because we have that relationship.
Yeah.
But vice versa, I'm trusting them. Like, hey, we start 20 minutes late every Sunday. I don't think that's right. But what is it? Because I tell my thought process. What? I tell my thought processor. What? I have no idea where that came from. I tell them my point of view and my thought. Explain what my thought process is, and so that.
Why did you lisp on that process?
Did I?
I don't know.
I don't think I did. I think imagine it. Process. Sorry. Yeah, and so I explained to them what my point of view and my process. I can't say that right now. But I explained to them what it is and where I'm coming from. And so from then, like, they'll say, like, oh, yeah, that makes sense because, and think about when Jesus did this and this. Yeah, we need to change it. Or on the other side, it's like, I don't really understand what you're saying. And then I'll explain again or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I see your point, but I mean, does it need to change? Like, you know what I mean? And so you have these people that check because I can talk to you guys and you'd be like, oh yeah, I hate that too. And like, yeah, let's do it then. But you know what I mean? It's like, because we already have identified that we have things in common and the way to, so it's that can be kind of dangerous and, from that perspective or whatever. And so I think that's a layer too, is being connected to the culture, not to the culture, because there's people that know so much about the culture, but aren't connected to people in the culture. And so be really connected and trusting of, and submission to indigenous people. Yeah. When I mean indigenous, I don't mean I mean Bolivians. In our case, I've said I don't want to say Bolivians because any country it goes for the same, right? Yeah. Of people who live there are from that place, and be open to listening to that. But equally, like what your conviction, like when it's something. Like, hey guys, I don't think we should be dancing with snakes before service every week. No, we've always done this, and this is because the Bible says they should. Well, I think you need to, at that point, stand up and be like, no, you know what, this is wrong. This is not what this is. And so, when it's wrong, I think you're pretty clear on it. But there's some times when it's like grayish area, and you're like, yeah, like talk to people about it. Don't hop up on stage or write a blog or whatever immediately. Like talk to people about it, have the conversation, and see what okay. Is it something that I don't like, or is it something that really needs to change? And so,
So like, so then it just comes down to, I think like what you were saying earlier, it's like to check your motive and check your heart. Because you can communicate anything if it's communicated in love and
absolutely.
And openness and with the attitude of submitting one to another.
Humility.
Yeah.
And if you're trustworthy. That's the thing too, is man, it's like we don't live in we don't seek community only when there's bad things happening. We live in community, and you have equity built up all the time, so that when something bad happens, it's like, or not bad, but a challenge or something happens, like, oh, you're already trusting each other. So, but a lot of times we try to gain trust in the moment, like after now we're trying to solve these issues, and we're trying to solve the issue with people equally while we're trying to gain trust, and it doesn't, it doesn't always work out good like that. You know what I mean? I don't know. So what about you? Because you made changes, sweeping changes that were necessary. Was that tough for you?
No.
Not at all.
No, not at all. It was all right. No. Again, going back to sort of like the generalization, stereotyping thing, you have to be really careful with that as well, because I think sometimes you think I'm the only person that thinks this way. So like you might go into a meeting being like, man, it's going to be me versus 7 of them about turning up on time because I'm the only one that thinks that's important. Well, actually, that's not the case at all. There will be people in the group that think exactly the same as you as well, and that get irritated by it as well. So you need to be careful that you're not marginalizing yourself from people and being like, I'm the only person that thinks this way. Because like you were saying with Rudy being the key thing on Sunday morning, there's a lady, Carla, in our group who's very vocal about we need to be on time, we need to be early when it comes to working with the kids. And I think, like again, like you were saying, communicate everything well is the biggest key for it. Not going in there and being like, hey, we need to be on time because that's what I've always done and that's better. But being like, okay, we need to be early so that we can prepare for this, so that we can meet together and just lay out, why are we doing this? Okay, why are we meeting at 9:20, 10 minutes before the kids arrive, so that we can go through the morning, so that we can plan together, so that we can pray together. And I think when you lay everything out and explain it, rather than being like, hey, we're doing this because it's better, and being like, hey, we're doing this because of A, B, C, and D, people will latch onto that a lot more, because it doesn't feel like an attack on their culture. It doesn't feel like you're going after them and being like, hey, you guys are always late, so we're going to change that right now.
You know, stop being late.
Yeah, stop being late. Just come early because I said so. That's not going to work. But to be like, okay, look, we're going to come at 9:20. We're going to do this, 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 and this. Are we all in agreement? Majority of, I mean, I haven't had an issue with it. Everyone agreed to it. And then once everyone in that meeting has agreed to it, that's when you as the leader have the responsibility to hold people to that, to hold people to account. Not to say, hey, again, not to bring up culture to it, but to be like, hey, we were in that meeting for Children's Church. We all agreed to turn up at 9:20. So we all need to turn up at 9:20 because that was agreed. Whether, and that's not to be like, oh yeah, but it's, you know, culture says they can turn up late or this or whatever. It's like, no, we agreed 9:20 for this A, B, C, and D reasons, and you can go back through them and say, hey, this is why we agreed to do it. So I think communication is key on that. Again, not so much on Children's Church, but I think, again, looking at personal preference and then sinfulness, I think there's okay as well to have your morals and values that you have, and understand that you don't necessarily need to change to how other people are doing things, but equally they don't need to change to how you're doing things. Neutrality, neutral, being neutral is okay in some situations, in my opinion, when it comes to culture. For example, football here, I am told every single week I need to play more rough, because that's how we play football here. Every single week, someone will cut to me, hey, you need to be more rough. Hey, you need to be pushing people. You need to be using your arms. You need to be, you know, throwing your body around so that you're getting more fouls, so that you're fouling people and things like that. One, I don't play that way. And two, I can't play that way because of the size of me. I'm just not that strong. I don't have the physique. That's not my style of play. Now, unless they're going around breaking people's legs, if that's how they play football, that's how they play football. If they're going around breaking people's legs, then obviously I'm going to call it out and be like, okay, this is probably not the best football culture to be setting the standard. But equally, if they're more physical than I am, then they play more physical than I am. That doesn't mean that I have to then play physical. But equally, it doesn't mean that they have to stop playing physical. I can play how I play. They can play how they play. And we can work in harmony with that. You know, it doesn't have to be a contradiction of, oh, now I just can't play football because I don't play the way that they play, or like, oh, we shouldn't play football because they're too rough. So yeah, I think sometimes if you're thinking, okay, this is personal preference rather than sinfulness, I think sometimes it's okay to just be neutral and just be like, okay, you know,
you don't have to assimilate nor confront.
That's the way you do things. This is the way I do things. That doesn't need to be a barrier. It doesn't need to create hostility. It's just the way that it is.
And you can have unity without uniformity too. You know what I mean?
That's
I think we don't believe that a lot of times. So it's like, oh, I do it like this, or on our side of it too. It's like, oh, we do it like this. So come on. It's like, no, bro, that's not the way I do it. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just not doing it like that. You know? Yeah, and because it's beauty and diversity as well too. And like, it's silly to have, but we do it a lot. I mean, everybody all over the world does it, you know. This has an expectation for everybody to do that. Cultural assimilation means to try to, like, drive like me, walk like me, talk, you know what I mean, and whatever. And it's like, no, those are optional. Those are, preferences, you know. And it's not, like he said, it's not a sin to not play like this, or to not drive like this, or to not run like this, or to not eat a certain thing on Friday night, or, you know, whatever. And so, yeah, definitely. Oh, so, and because I think that's the other side of it too, is I've seen people who go into the mission field and basically just really make an effort to be Bolivian or Nigerian, and then it becomes semi weird and insulting because you're never going to be that, you know what I mean? And so it's like people forgetting English, and you know what I mean. Now they speak speak English with a Bolivian accent, and like it's just I've never seen that here. I've seen it in other places, but it just gets silly at that point too. It's like, okay, and now people are looking at you like Like, just be yourself in the middle of that and be comfortable with that, but don't stomp on other people for being themselves either, outside of the lines of sin, of course, you know. So, yeah.
So how do you, maybe they're just taking that scripture very literal to be all things to all men. Just like, oh, you speak with a lisp, let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and like, it's just, it just gets silly, you know, like, yeah, that's not what he meant, but.
Yeah, and I think, again, like, there's a time to bend your preferences, and again, there's a time to stick to them. So, like, we don't wear suits at our church, but if I'm invited to another church and they say, hey, our preachers wear suits, then I'm just going to wear a suit.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to put up a barrier there.
Yeah.
I don't need to create I don't need to create hostility, or to try and, you know, put my culture or our church culture above their church culture and be like, well, we do it better. You know, if they wear suits when they preach, they wear, and I'm going there to preach, then I'll wear a suit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good point too. Like, because at that point, it's self-sacrificial, right? And so it's like, yeah, put your preferences on the altar. Like, know when that this is not worth arguing over. You know what I mean? Like, it's, again, if you're, well, in our case, we're leaders at our church, and so we're obviously deeply involved in leadership and stuff. So we're able to, you know, live freely in that sense, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it, I don't know. But yeah, equally, if we're going somewhere else and it's like, hey, we wear suits, yeah, put the suit on, like, put the tie on, whatever. And don't, like, no need to make a stink over that, you know. But yeah. But equally, if you go into the church and they don't wear suits and trying to convince them to wear suits, or if they wear suits and you want them to not wear suits, like, you know what I mean? Again, then now we're getting back into the thing. But like, if they're like, hey, we only wear t-shirts and I love wearing suits, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll put a t-shirt on. You know what I mean? Like, because it's not about that at the end of the day. It's about this message, and, you know.
Yeah, I remember when I was giving vocal courses to the worship team at another church. The way they do worship is just very different from the way we do at our church. They are pretty much just hymns and they're in older songs, you know, like 20-year-old songs. And I went in there and I wasn't saying this is wrong. It was just very different. And so here I had to, you know, work with them on songs that I don't like. It's not my preference, you know. But my job was to help them lead better in what they lead worship with, you know, and with the tools they had. And then equally, they don't agree with the modern, newer songs, you know. I'm always looking for newer songs. This song came out last week. Let's see if we could, you know, learn it or whatever. But they weren't like, oh, that's sinful and that's wrong. It was just that it was beautiful. It was one of the few times that I've ever seen churches with such a difference in worship, their approach to choosing their worship songs, not completely bash one another because of their preference. You know?
Yeah, allowing each other to be different, you know. But I mean, because the goal is essentially, what are you singing and who are you singing to? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you don't have to sing the same songs and all this stuff. So, but yeah, allowing space for diversity and. So yeah, I mean, it can be all narrowed down to sin always needs to change. Like, sinful things in society in general. I don't care if it's your own, you grew up there. There are things that you do that you count as culturally, whether it's your family culture, whether it's your city's culture, your state's culture, or your country, whatever, that are sinful. And regardless of where you live, you know what I mean? Those things need to be done over with, you know, whether it's the way you view people or whether it's an actual sinful practice of, you know, oh, we get drunk every year on such, well, that's sinful. We don't need to, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to talk about there. And so I think, you know, it can be basically summed up in, especially for us as missionaries, is like, okay, ask yourself that question. Is it sinful? That's the first and last question.
Yeah.
If it's yes, then yes, it needs to change. But then equally, like, okay, if maybe it's not sinful per se, but does it affect, like, what is the word I'm looking for? Progress? Like, is it holding back relationships in the church somehow, or, you know, I don't know, or any type of progression in the church for the glory of God? If it's yes, then technically in that case it's sinful. It's not maybe a sin, but it's sinful, right? Like, and so that's a different thing. But then even ask yourself too, like, hey, what are the roots of my frustration for this? And again, ask people around you and people that aren't like you, because that's the thing. As people that are like you, they're gonna think, yeah, it's bad, blah blah blah, and they pat you up about, feeling good about something that maybe you shouldn't feel good about, So searching your heart, and but equally allowing other people to search your heart, That's what community is about.
That's good.
And so I think, I think that's the steps. Those are the steps I think I would take. That I guess I probably do take in that. And then too, in ministry, it's about the kingdom. It ain't about nobody cares where you're from. God doesn't care about your country. He cares about the people in your country. Mm-hmm. God doesn't care about Bolivia. He cares about Bolivians. Yeah. He doesn't care about America. He cares about Americans. Mm-hmm. Like he doesn't separate he's not doing that. Like makes that very clear. Paul makes that very clear in the letters. Like God loves people. He doesn't care about this. So, really taking that into account when you're seeking to make something better or whatever, you know what I mean? There's no better than this because you're born in a place with imaginary boundaries. Like, it's just silly when you think about it, or you have a different set of, it's not even values, but like secondary values, I guess you could say, or, whatever. So, yeah, I think that's what my answer or advice would be.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then just be fully aware that changing culture does take time.
It does.
You're not going to do it overnight, and it's not going to change after an hour rant on the front of a stage or with a megaphone down the marketplace. Isn't going to be necessarily the way to change a culture, but it's going to be, hard work, lead by example. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One person at a time sometimes. So just sticking through it.
I think it's a very constant reminder of who we are even in Christ, like as children of God, just being pilgrims passing through in a place that's not our home. It's just like you feel that every single day as a missionary, this is not my home, and just a great reminder that none of this is our home, no matter what country you're in.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Because we get comfortable in these situations and these things, these little. Yeah, and we relate and connect to them, and you're right. That's not who we're supposed to be, but it's kingdom-minded people. So yeah, looks like we're done here.
Yeah.
Good place to leave it.
We wrapped it up.
That's a good place to leave it.
That's the first time we've wrapped it up.
Did we?
Yeah, because before it's like, all right, guys, so you done? We're done now.
Yeah, good grief. That accent was so awful.
It was good anyway.
That wasn't an English accent, was that?
No.
No, it wasn't, but it was an attempt to be.
Right.
No, it wasn't.
You
said,
yeah, you're right. You're right. It was an attempt.
You Big Shaq?
We're done now.
Yeah, Michael Dapper.
How would you say it? We're done now.
I don't say it.
How would you say it? We're done now.
But he said, but he's not. It's not just
now.
an English accent. It's like a London, like.
We're done now. I said it very well.
Nigerian influenced, like it's a specific accent too. So yeah. Anyways, well. Good
We're
talk.
done now.
Holy moly. Say that again?
No.
All right. No, work. Got you to stop. All right, well, thank you for listening. We appreciate your we appreciate your love and your attention, your support. We got some big news coming up soon. So be on the lookout for that. That's all I got.
The suspense.
Yeah, there's not suspense, guys. Then they're gonna. If they're listening,
they'll have to watch our YouTube channel soon, right? Keep an eye out on that.
Well, I mean, yeah, whatever. Or we'll talk about it on here as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'm not pregnant.
No, that's nothing like that. We got a new duck. Yeah, no, it's not.
And I wanted that little baby.
Okay, that's a different thing. We're not getting into that. Anyways, all right, thank you for listening. We appreciate your love and your support. We will see you next week. See, I see your mouth. You're going to say it. No, you did.
I did.
Yeah. Provecho.